Hey, so I know what you're probably thinking.
Stunzy, what the hell is this? This isn't Sonic. This isn't even JoJo. What are you?
And yeah, I know. But look, Star Wars is totally a thing, right? And thinking back, Star Wars might have been the first thing I was ever really a fan of. It's either that or Spider-Man, but the point is, Star Wars has been a part of my life since I was a very small boy. And in particular, the character that's always been my favorite and resonated the most with me is Luke Skywalker. Yeah, again, I know, about as vanilla as it gets, right? But in my defense, this is a character with a lot going on for him. There's even 2 versions of him. Well, 3? There's the George Lucas version of Luke, which firmly ends with Return of the Jedi, but the other 2 that expand his adventures after that are the as of 2014 canon version, which most commonly appears in the sequel trilogy, and the original Expanded Universe Legends version, which appears in the novels, comics, and video games and any other storytelling mediums that fall under the same umbrella. If you read the title of this video, or you saw the thumbnail, you probably know where my preferences lie. Look, I'm gonna level with you for a second. I don't like the sequel trilogy, and the characterization of Luke Skywalker is one of the main reasons why. Now, the point of this video isn't to sequel bash. In fact, I'd like to talk about them as little as possible. The only reason I bring the topic of canon Luke up at all is because I've seen lately the opinion online especially is that canon developed the character much better, that he's deeper, more nuanced and human than the Legends version, which frankly I disagree with. Now, I'm not saying you're wrong if you like canon Luke better, because I do think his character arc is cool in a vacuum. It's just not one I think should have been told using Luke Skywalker, and I don't find it to be a logical continuation of where we last left him in Return of the Jedi. Once again, if you like canon Luke or the sequel trilogy, I think that's great and you're perfectly valid. Conveying the opposite isn't my goal at all. Okay, now I'm never talking about them again. By contrast, the accusations levied at Legends Luke are that he's boring, too powerful, and he experiences zero growth over the course of his life. Not only is this a gross oversimplification of him in my opinion, but I would say it comes from a lack of understanding at how subtle his growth could be in Legends. First, he is pretty damn powerful, but I think the accusation of him being OP and untouchable is a little overblown, and the heights of power he reaches are fairly well justified, which I'll cover a little bit, but is in no way the focus of this little informal video essay thing. Now obviously, the accusation of him being boring is subjective, but in my opinion, if you think Legends Luke is boring, you might just not like the character at all. But the idea that he doesn't grow and is the exact same character during the yuuzhan Vong invasion as he was at the victory celebration on Endor is absurd to me. And because I feel the need to defend my favorite version of my favorite character in debatably anything ever, my goal here is to explain how Star Wars Legends did Luke Skywalker justice. First, I'd be remiss if I didn't at least acknowledge Luke's character development in the original trilogy. While yes, it is pretty much just the standard hero's journey Joseph Campbell archetype thingy, for my money, it's the best execution of the hero's journey that there is. Luke going from,
"Take these 2 over to the garage, will you? I want them cleaned up before dinner."
But I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
to,
Search your feelings, Father. You can't do this. I feel the conflict within you. Let go of your hate.
in 3 films is captivating and satisfying. It's filled with victories and failures, and we get to experience it all alongside him as he goes from a bright-eyed young farm boy to mature and collected Jedi Knight. It's just,
I want to learn the ways of the Force and become a Jedi like my father.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
it's beautiful. Chef's kiss. But in the Legends continuity, Luke goes even further than this. Beyond a Jedi Knight to a Jedi Master, hell, more than that, and it never stops being fantastic to me. So technically, following Return of the Jedi, the novels Truce at Bakura and Courtship of Princess Leia occur, as well as some dubiously canon Marvel comics. While all of these are cool adventures, I don't consider them imperative to Luke's character development, so I'm going to skip them in favor of beginning 5 years after Return of the Jedi with a set of novels called If you know anything about the Star Wars Legends continuity, it's either Knights of the Old Republic or these three novels, Heir to the Empire, Dark Force Rising, and The Last Command, all written by Timothy Zahn. Again, these novels pick up 5 years after the events of the 6th film and cover the fledgling New Republic struggles against the infamous Grand Admiral Thrawn and the insane Jedi clone Joruus C'baoth. Luke's character arc in the Thrawn trilogy is perfectly set up in the first scene he appears in, where his Coruscant apartment is visited by the Force spirit of Obi-Wan Kenobi, as he confirms for the last time. In this interaction with his late mentor, Luke laments the fact that without Obi-Wan to guide him, he'll be completely alone. Obi-Wan informs him, though, that he's thinking about it all wrong, that Luke is not the last of the old Jedi, but the first of the new, a line which foreshadows Luke's journey for the rest of the Legends canon. But this conversation clues us into what Luke's main struggle is in these novels. As silly as it may sound, it's insecurity. Luke has to contend with his place in the galaxy, that line from Yoda in Return of the Jedi coming back to haunt him.
Force winds strong in your family. Pass on what you have learned.
Luke is effectively the last of the Jedi, and has to come to terms with what that means. But he also faces the fact that he has no confidence as a teacher. He's the only option to train Leia's soon-to-come children in the ways of the Force, and yet he doesn't believe in his own ability to do that. While Obi-Wan and Yoda completed his training, Luke expresses dismay that he knows very little about the Jedi Knights of old, or what it means to be one following the defeat of Darth Vader and the Emperor. This struggle manifests itself in various ways throughout the novels as Luke aids the New Republic facing the Thrawn campaign. The Tapcaf scene where he ends up settling a dispute between two spacers because they defer to the wisdom associated with the Jedi tells Luke a bit more about the role he plays. But his insecurity as a teacher and desperation to find a better one leads him to pursuing Joruus C'baoth, who he isn't aware is an insane clone and believes it's his duty to assert dominance over non-Force users. As Luke slowly discovers the truth about Joruus, he also encounters Mara Jade, who is a character that will go on to be very important to him in the future. As the former hand of Emperor Palpatine, she possessed an affinity for the Force that she seems to have lost after the death of her master. As the pair of them grow closer, this dynamic allows for Luke to dip his toes into being a master, teaching Mara a little bit about the Force and helping her regain her skills. This culminates in Luke and Mara's final confrontation with Joruus, where Luke is forced to face a physical manifestation of these insecurities in his own clone, Luke, with 2 U's. I swear, in context, this is actually cool. When Luke manages to defeat the clone and Mara kills Joruus, the Republic is saved for a time. Upon their return to Coruscant, Luke and Mara sit up on his rooftop and have a conversation about the future, one in which he gives her the lightsaber that once belonged to his father, Anakin. After that, they go to attend a debriefing, but Luke is able to come to a more definitive conclusion about his role as a Jedi. While the Old Republic had many thousands of Jedi Knights, the New Republic only has Luke, so people will look to him to make it a safer place. With Force user threats like Joruus C'baoth still possible, he settles into his role as sole Jedi so that he can offer his strength and wisdom to the Republic, because their struggles are far from over. Luke's arc carries from there into the controversial Dark Empire comic series by Tom Veitch, Cam Kennedy, and Jim Bikey. Set 1 year after the Thrawn trilogy, Luke has become incredibly powerful with the Force, able to deflect turbo laser fire with a Force shield and pull down whole AT-AT walkers with a touch of telekinesis. While never directly stated in the comic itself or the accompanying audio drama, I speculate that the reason for Luke's rapid growth was because in the time off-screen, or off-page, or off-panel, or whatever, he did little else but continue his training. During the Thrawn crisis, Luke was not powerful enough to defeat Joruus C'baoth on his own, so it makes sense that he would do anything he could to grow in case the New Republic was threatened by a Force user again, and Luke's efforts appeared to be plenty fruitful. His place in the galaxy as Guardian of the Republic also seems to have totally resonated with him. Leia's efforts to use animal bond also show us that Luke has continued to at least entertain the notion of teaching others about the Force. It really seems like he's on the right track here. But Dark Empire is one of Luke's lowest points.
I suddenly feel cold. Cold. Like a dead hand pressing on my heart.
Emperor Palpatine returns, having transferred his dark side essence into a younger clone body. Whether this is really him or not, or just a clone, is up to interpretation. But it's important to remember the Chosen One prophecy did not exist at the time of writing, so Tom Veitch can't be blamed for contradicting it. Despite all his training, the Emperor is the greatest evil Luke had ever faced, and he knows he isn't ready to take him on. Throughout Dark Empire, Luke must contend with the dark side and his legacy once and for all. His reasons for becoming Palpatine's apprentice are twofold. One, he believes that the Emperor can only be destroyed from within. And two, that he had to understand the dark side, to understand why his father chose it and what made it so dangerous. See, with Luke's newfound power came hubris. Having the confidence in himself that he could not only destroy Palpatine's empire from within, but completely resist the dark side while doing so proved to be his greatest weakness. Because Luke does fall to the dark side.
You leave me no choice.
Not completely. He is able to sabotage the World Devastators and most of Palpatine's clone bodies, but Luke can only resist the dark side so long because the truth is he was afraid of the Emperor, of losing all that the New Republic had built, of losing Han, Leia, and the Solo twins who were hardly a year old. Much like his father before him, Luke in Dark Empire is his own worst enemy. But unlike Anakin, Luke isn't alone. In the final confrontation with Emperor Palpatine, Leia is able to pull him back from the brink, and together, it's their bond that allows them to enter the state of Force harmony and gives Luke the strength to defeat Palpatine at last.
No! I made a mistake. I thought I had to save the galaxy alone, all by myself. But the way of the Jedi is not a solitary path. The Force binds us, brings us together. Many people are fighting this war together. Our ally is the Force. Through the strength of the Force, your shroud of evil has been lifted from my mind.
Luke is able to recognize that he was wrong for thinking he could protect the galaxy from darkness by himself, and sees that the real strength of a Jedi comes from uniting with others through the Force. He was never meant to fight alone. By the end of Dark Empire, Luke faced his greatest crucible yet, and in diving into the belly of the beast, he emerged stronger in the light than ever before, with a newfound understanding of the dark on top of it. Knowing there is but one thing left to do, Luke honors Obi-Wan's final words to him by deciding the Jedi Knights must rise again. While a year prior he was apprehensive at the idea, Luke now trusts that this is a quest he was meant to undertake. Dark Empire 2 and Empire's End follow this trend. With the rediscovery of the Tidrin holocron and the ancient Jedi world of Ossus, Luke is able to learn more about the Jedi of old and expand his knowledge on how to pass on their teachings, further assuaging his fears from the year prior. After formally declaring himself a Jedi Master, Luke is ready at last by the end of the Dark Empire series to begin rebuilding the Jedi Order. The trio of novels Jedi Search, Dark Apprentice, and Champions of the Force by Kevin J. Anderson follow shortly after the events of Dark Empire. Also set during this time is the novel I, Jedi, which was written by Michael J. Stackpole and retells many of the trilogy's events through the eyes of Corran Horn. At last, Luke Skywalker establishes his Jedi Praxium on Yavin 4, and takes on his first class of 12 Jedi students, cementing the rebirth of the Order. However, little does Luke know, On Yavin 4 resides the imprisoned spirit of the ancient Sith Lord Exar Kun. Once again, Luke is tested, for the first time as an official teacher, but also in his faith in the lesson he learned in Dark Empire. First, the scenes we get of Luke teaching his students are amazing. There are lessons on telekinesis, spiritual awareness, lightsaber combat, and others. He's come far since the Thrawn trilogy at this point, and he's able to pass on what he'd learned to those who were very much like him at the beginning of his journey all those years ago. Luke has become like Obi-Wan and Yoda before him, and while his lessons begin in much the same vein as theirs, Luke's teaching style gradually evolves and becomes more his own as he shares his budding philosophies on the Force with his students. Students who exemplify one of the great strengths of Legends, which is to say they're all characters in their own right who have had and will continue to have their own adventures. There's returning faces, characters Luke had met before, like Mara Jade from the Thrawn trilogy, Cam Solusar from Dark Empire 2, Corran Horn from the X-Wing novels, Kirana T from Courtship of Princess Leia, and Kyle Katarn from the Dark Forces series. Also along for the ride are new faces technically first introduced in this series, like Tione, Dorsk 81, Brachus, Streen, Gantoris, Silgal, and Kip Duran. They, just like their master, will also face an incredible trial of faith and trust throughout these books. For Luke in specific, Exar Kun's spirit is unlike anything he'd ever faced up to that point. While the reborn Palpatine may technically have been more powerful and had a greater impact on Luke, Kun isn't someone that Skywalker can just cut down with his lightsaber, and Luke isn't even the main target this time around. It's his students. At this point, Luke has a belief in himself and has conquered the dark side, but the new Jedi haven't, and Exar Kun is an expert in manipulation and corruption. Kun is successfully able to turn Gantoris against Luke and also kill the young student, which is when everything starts to fall apart. Students start showing dark tendencies or leave the academy out of fear of doing so. Luke's mental state grows hindered and weary. The stress of desperately trying to protect his students but being unable to completely do so greatly impacts his abilities in Dark Apprentice specifically. A very human and possibly relatable struggle for my money, which allows Exar Kun to manipulate Kip Duran, a boy strong in the Force, and use him as a conduit of Sith sorcery to actually tear Luke's spirit from his body. With Luke now in ghost form, he is only able to watch in horror as Kun tries to further corrupt his students. This is where Luke's faith is tested, best demonstrated in one of the confrontations between Spirit Luke and Exar Kun, where Kun promises to transform the Jedi students into the new Order of Sith. Luke, however, has to come to terms with the fact that he can't shield them from what's going on. Rather, he has to have a belief in his own teachings, but more importantly, belief in his students. Belief that they will be able to save themselves without his help and that the Force will guide them now that he's taught them to listen to it. This proves to work out, as the Jedi students are able to catch on to what's happening and unify against Kun, pooling their spirits in the Force to destroy Exar Kun's ghost once and for all, which allows Luke to reclaim his body. Not only does Luke earn his medal as a teacher, but he also grows to place his trust in the capable Jedi he instructs. He knows that he can depend on the new Jedi just as much as they can depend on him, and Luke willingly accepts that the galaxy is no longer just his to safeguard. This clarity is highlighted in the latter half of I, Jedi, in a scene where Luke arrives just in time to rescue Corran from the Gensarai, stating powerfully that no one need die here tonight. Luke believes in others, and would much rather make allies to continue expanding his Jedi's understanding of the Force, rather than be a dogmatic group unwilling to accept more philosophy than just theirs. The rest of what's commonly referred to as the New Republic era has a lot going on, and Luke Skywalker's life is no exception. Throughout the various novels, comics, and video games of the era, Luke stays plenty busy. Between getting the new Jedi Order more involved with the happenings of the galaxy, and trying to protect the Solo kids from power-hungry Imperial warlords, there are few dull moments. The comic Jedi Academy Leviathan features Luke sending Kip Duran, Streen, and Kirana T on the first officially sanctioned Jedi mission. Both the novel The New Rebellion and the video game Jedi Outcast have Luke dealing with a former student turning to the dark side, and coming back to cause problems for everyone. These adventures range anywhere from great to terrible and even a little weird, but they are all foundational stories that will have you asking yourself questions such as, what will happen between the New Republic and the Imperial Remnant? How will the new Jedi Order establish itself? Will the Solo kids ever get adequate protection? All of these questions and the stories that help to answer them are building somewhere to the New Republic era's conclusion in this pair of novels, Spectre of the Past and Vision of the Future by returning author Timothy Zahn, caps off the New Republic era. The events of this story are big ones for Luke Skywalker, as it features him reflecting on his life thus far, now 19 years after his journey began on Tatooine and coming to the conclusions that will shape the next period of his life. Holy shit, I'm literally just now realizing that's what the titles are talking about. In the midst of a possible treaty of peace between the New Republic and the Imperial Remnant, Luke's story in these books is about personal and spiritual balance. Because Luke is a character that never really stops learning, there's still more for him to figure out, even though at this point he's been a Jedi Master and training others at his Praxium for years. The whirlwind nature of his life has kept Luke from asking himself questions about whether or not he was going about these things the right way. He's Luke Skywalker the Jedi Master, Luke Skywalker the hero, and Luke Skywalker the family man. And while he knows he is all of these things and can serve in these roles with confidence, it's still difficult for him to strike a balance between all of them. The other thing Luke is searching for is how to improve at being these things at all, because he is able to acknowledge once things have slowed down that even with all the strides he's made, there is always room to become better. These questions and discussions are fielded back and forth with his one-time partner, Mara Jade, who plays the straight man to Luke's more pensive nature in these books. The two of them work together to uncover a plot surrounding a clone of Grand Admiral Thrawn that they're able to destroy before it can awaken, but the small and personal moments between them are what really make their storyline. Mara's perspective is especially impactful because she's Luke's same age, so the midlife crisis is something she's also been working through based on her past. She's been here for pretty much everything that's gone on since the Thrawn trilogy, so she's got the context of a participant, and finally, because she's not going to sugarcoat everything for him. Mara wants to see Luke become the best Jedi, uncle, brother, man, and lover that he can be. Over the course of the story, Luke and Mara fall in love with each other. Or maybe more accurately, realize that they've been in love with each other this whole time. It's the thing that puts the perfect bow on their coming together and being each other's eternal support network. In the Force and as people, they share a bond that's unlike any other. The ultimate kind of love. Look, I can't explain it with my feeble words and still do it justice. It's great. Go read it. The part at the end of Vision of the Future where Luke and Mara are sitting on the roof and dreaming not only of their wedding, but of what the future holds, and saying that whatever the Force has in store, they'll be able to face it together, is quite possibly my favorite scene in Star Wars. The Hand of Thrawn duology is the love story of Luke Skywalker and Mara Jade. And it is that way because it allows for them to help each other become the best versions of themselves that they can be. So, to briefly recap, we now have a Luke Skywalker that's learned what it means to be a Jedi Knight, conquered the dark side once and for all, become a Jedi Master, rebuilt the Order as a rejuvenated and more free group of peacekeepers, found balance within himself, and essentially become everything a Jedi could want to be. And there are few places where this is demonstrated better than in Book 1 of the Young Jedi Knight series by Kevin J. Anderson and Rebecca Moesta. Way back in Empire Strikes Back, you'll remember Luke learned from Yoda the core tenets of what it meant to be a Jedi. And one of the most important things the old grandmaster had to tell him was,
a Jedi uses the Force for knowledge and defense. never attack.
And, well, Jason squinted at the behemoth. The monster let out a bellow of challenge so loud and so horrendous that it seemed to make the ancient stone blocks tremble. The 3 young Jedi Knights hurried to the ground level. At the jungle's edge, the hideous monster turned, as if distracted by something. Jason felt his heart leap, thinking at first that perhaps the wild creature had seen the 3 of them approaching. But he saw that its attention was fixed instead on another figure walking alone, emerging from the lower levels of the temple pyramid, confidently gliding over the clipped grasses and weeds. Luke Skywalker wore only his Jedi robe. Jason expected to see him holding his lightsaber, but both of Luke's hands were empty. Luke stared at the creature, and the creature stared back with a dozen eyes waving at the ends of tentacles covering its face. The Jedi Master continued to walk forward, directly toward the monster, as if he were in some sort of trance. He took one step, then another. The beast bristled, but held its ground, bellowing loudly enough to make the trees swish. But Luke spoke in an oddly calm and clear voice that was not at all muffled by the distance. "No, here, look at me," he said. Suddenly, unexpectedly, old Peckham charged out of the open bay doors of the lightning rod. In his hands, he held an old-fashioned blaster rifle. But Luke turned to him and motioned with his hand. "No," he said. The blaster rifle went flying out of Peckham's grip. The old supply runner stared in astonishment as Luke continued to stroll towards the monster, seemingly without a care in the world. "This creature means no harm," Luke said, his voice quiet but firm. He never took his eyes off the beast. "It's just frightened and confused. It doesn't know where it is or why we are here." He drew a deep breath. "There's no need for killing." Luke stepped right up to the shaggy, angry thing, within touching distance. The Jedi Master looked incredibly small, yet unafraid. Luke raised his hand, palm out. Luke stood in front of the nightmarish beast and took a deep breath. He didn't move. The monster held its ground and snorted. Its eye stalks waved, unblinking, pointing slinted pupils down at him. The monster snuffled and waited, motionless, its wicked tusks less than a meter away from Luke Skywalker. The silence seemed so overwhelming that when Luke at last broke the frozen moment, his whisper sounded as loud as a shout. "Go," Luke told the creature. "There is nothing you need here." The jungle fell silent. The breeze died away. Jason held his breath. Jaina gripped his hand. Tenel Ka narrowed her cool gray eyes. The monster reared up on its hind set of piston legs, its eye tentacles thrashing in a frenzy. Then it let out another high-pitched trumpet before it spun around and crashed off into the thick undergrowth. Branches cracked, trees bent to one side as it plowed a wide path back to the mysterious jungle depths from which it had come. I don't think you need me to explain that one. This is a great moment and truly speaks to everything Luke has become on his journey thus far. I'll let it speak for itself. The New Jedi Order is a 19-book epic written in collaboration by several different authors. Chronicling the yuuzhan-vong War, this is the defining conflict for the new Jedi in very much the same way that the Clone Wars was for the prequel-era Jedi. It's also, in my opinion, the peak of Star Wars. Luke obviously plays a pretty big role in this series, being as it's his struggle and responsibility to lead a Jedi Order so young still against an enemy they know nothing about and seems nearly impossible to defeat. While technically he already did serve in the role, I don't think it was until the yuuzhan-vong War that Luke really came into his role as the Jedi Grandmaster and finally stood not only as an equal with his predecessors, but perhaps even above them. He's forced to confront the nature of the Force in a way he'd never thought to before, and make hard leadership decisions in a galaxy in which he sees each and every world as one under the protection of himself and his Jedi Knights, while also looking out for the best interests of the latter. Not to mention, his nephews and niece, now Jedi Knights in their own right, are on the front lines. It isn't easy. Incredibly strong in the Force Skywalker may be, but infallible he is not. Still, it isn't all bad. Even in times of unprecedented loss, Much like the era before, there is always hope. Luke and Mara have a son in the middle of the conflict, who they affectionately name Ben after another great Jedi. Fatherhood is the other beast Luke has to wrestle with during the NJO series, as his relationship with his own was odd. This is also the era where people like to claim Luke got too OP. Sure, he does pull off some pretty crazy stuff, but most of the feats, like moving so fast he appeared as though he were wielding 20 lightsabers at once, and manipulating a black hole with the Force, are taken ridiculously out of context. If Luke was powerful enough to win every battle with ease, the galaxy and the Jedi wouldn't be in the state they were in during the war. Luke himself wouldn't be a struggling leader, which is what makes his character so compelling. In many ways, he never stopped being that boy from Tatooine, but he's always learning from every experience, always improving. He does fail. Hell, he fails a lot in NJO. But he always gets back up and puts himself back together, because the Jedi and the galaxy at large need Luke Skywalker to do the very best that he can. All that, and he isn't even the main character. That's right, Luke is not the main character of the New Jedi Order series. Like I said, he still has a pretty sizable role, but I'd say it's much more akin to that of a mentor figure than anything else. While it is true that Luke is the one who leads the assault on Vong-formed Coruscant, and Luke who engages in the big climactic duel with Supreme Overlord Shimra, it's really the true main characters who shadow his journey and make it their own. It's Anakin who has to learn what it means to be a hero, Jaina who has to overcome the grip of the dark side, Tahiri who has to find a balance within herself, and Jacen who becomes one with the Force and saves the galaxy. Luke is simply there to guide each of them through these things. And okay, amazing peak Star Wars book series aside, what does this all mean? What's the sum of all these parts? Why is it important that Luke Skywalker turn out this way? Well, there is some method to my madness.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
The core storyline of the Star Wars saga, and I don't care which era is your favorite, is that of Anakin and Luke Skywalker and how their stories define each other. By George Lucas's design, their journeys are mirrored. They start out much the same, and there are several points throughout the prequel and original trilogies that echo. Anakin and Luke are walking the same path, right up until one pivotal moment. The one where Anakin goes left and Luke goes right. And I think where their stories go after that moment needs to be just as reflective of that to make it all sound, because that's the whole point. Luke Skywalker, the powerful grandmaster of a new Jedi Order that's free from the trappings of their predecessors, with his wife Mara Jade and son Ben by his side, is exactly everything Anakin wanted for himself, and the complete opposite in every sense of what Darth Vader became. For the stories of father and son to mirror each other right up until the point where they diverge and then come around as opposites, it's the perfect way to drive home the impact of each of them. For Luke to turn out the way he does at the end of his story makes the entire grand tapestry of Star Wars so much stronger. It means that Anakin's struggles and sacrifices were all worth something, because all of Luke's successes and the galaxy he helped forge wouldn't be possible if not for his father. That's the Chosen One's legacy. And I'm going to be a little coy. Won't say anymore. I would encourage you to check out these stories for yourself and experience them as I have these past few years. It's truly colored and recontextualized how I view the Star Wars saga and become my personal canon. I won't tell you Legends is all 100% good all the time, because that's simply not true and would be unfair to expect. But I will say it's solid more times than it's not. It's crazy, it's fun, it's sci-fi, it's fantasy, it's spiritual, and I love it. It feels like Star Wars in its purest form to me. A true natural addition to the world Lucas created in his 6 films. For more than just Luke, I would strongly urge you to read some of these novels and comics or play some of these video games to experience it for yourself. I promise, you will not regret it. As always, thank you so much for watching, and may the Force be with you. Always.